welcome to another episode of Going All In, Get the Edge You Need to Succeed. I am Dr. Erin McKinley, and today we have another awesome spotlight session with Leslie Ballard from the North Oaks Medical Center Dietetic Internship in Hammond, Louisiana. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you, Erin.
How are you today?
Doing well. Happy to be here, working from home today. So,
of course. So before we get into talking about the North Oaks internship, tell the group a little bit about you, like your journey to becoming a registered dietitian and how you landed as the director of North Oaks.
Sure. Well, so I've been the director at North Oaks for about 5 years. I started in 2015. And my journey, so I was a LSU student as well. I graduated from LSU in 2005. And when I graduated, just like the rest of the students, I applied for an internship and did not match. Back then in 2005, it was about a 50% match rate. Now it's closer to 75% match rate. So, my first round, I didn't match to an internship, and I said, okay, what am I going to do? So I applied to graduate school, and I started working on a master's at Southeastern. I was enrolled in a master's of health promotion. And while I was getting my master's degree, I said, well, I know I want to go to North Oaks for my internship. It's local. I can live at home. It's part-time. I can save money, all of these things. It's like, so what can I do to make myself more competitive? And I decided that the best bet was to get a job there. So I somehow, by some luck, got a job as a community health educator in their education department. And I worked as a community educator for about 4 years while I completed my master's. And so then, because I think I did a good job in that role, the director at the time of the dietetic internship actually approached me and said, why aren't you one of my interns yet? Why haven't you done this yet? And so I think, that gave me the courage to then go ahead and apply again. And then I got into the internship program at that point. So I guess the moral of that story is don't give up. If you don't get in somewhere the first round, work on yourself and, figure out where you want to go and figure out what you can do to make yourself more marketable to that program. And so for me, it was, let me go get a job there so that they can see my work ethic and see that while my grades may not have been stellar, that I have other good attributes that I could really bring to their program. So that was my journey. After I completed the internship and passed the exam, I actually worked in sports nutrition for about 5 years. I am a CSSD. I'm a certified specialist in sports dietetics. So I worked in the sports arena for about 5 years and then, got the call from North Oaks saying, hey, the director's retiring. Remember us, want to come back. And so, I was very happy to go back and take over that role. And so, in my current role at North Oaks, I am obviously the dietetic internship director. I also run the outpatient nutrition program, and we started a sports nutrition program at Southeastern Athletics. So I run the sports nutrition program for Southeastern as well. And here I am. That was my journey.
That is awesome. I didn't know that you had taken on so many other roles.
That's what really happens, right? You do a good job, you get to do lots of other jobs too.
That is true. That is true. All right. So we have your presentation ready to go. So I'm going to let you take it away so you can tell us about your program.
Sure. Well, first of all, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for having some interest in the North Oaks program. If you want to look at our next slide. So North Oaks Medical Center, we've been around for about 60 years. It's a pretty large health system. We have not only the main campus, which hosts the medical center, lots of clinic buildings, but we also have a rehab center where we have rehabilitation, and then we have multiple clinics throughout Tangipahoa and Livingston parishes. So we've been around a long time, and it's a rapidly growing hospital because we are the level 2 trauma center for the area. So we continue to grow. And so that's just a little bit about North Oaks. We're a pretty large facility. I think most people think of us as being small because it's in Hammond. But I always find when students come to visit me at the hospital, they're pretty surprised. They didn't realize how large of a facility we were. So it's a large medical center, and you do participate in rotations at the medical center as well as the rehab center, and outpatient centers as well. And then on the next slide, a little bit about our program. So we are approved to take 9 interns each year. Historically, I usually fill. This year, I actually have 7 interns. And that just, it just depends on the year. We really try and take people who we think are a really good fit and not just fill the positions with anybody just to fill our positions. So this year I ended up with 7. We are a part-time program, which I know is pretty unique with what dietetic internships normally do. Part-time for us means that you are required to participate in rotations 3 days a week. So for 3 days each week, you're going to be an intern. Those other 2 weekdays, and then the weekends, you're on your own. Now, some weeks we might have a class. We do meet for class once a month. So that means that week you'd have 4 days that you'd have to participate. But pretty much it's sometime Monday through Friday. We don't do nights or weekends. And so there's plenty of time. I think that's why most students apply to us, because they have time then to also maintain a job. We start in June and end in June the following year. The tuition is $7,800. That tuition also includes your payment to go to a 3-day exam prep workshop. We go to the reading exam workshop each year. And so that cost will already be included in your tuition. We do have a 92% pass rate right now on the RD exam, and hopefully that'll just keep going up. We kind of have always maintained right around there. I think 2 years ago, maybe I had a student that still hasn't passed, but otherwise we kind of stay pretty stable with our pass rates. And on the next slide, so we have a dual concentration, meaning we spend the most hours in medical nutrition therapy as well as food service management. So we're very heavy in our MNT criteria. So you can see 776 hours. That's the bulk of your time in the internship program is in some kind of clinical or MNT rotation. Food service management is 240 hours, which is basically about 8 weeks. And then community is a much smaller portion. We do community rotations throughout the year, but things like that would be community cooking demos. We teach a lot of classes at the hospital in cardiac rehab or pulmonary rehab. We do grocery store tours with the diabetes support group, participate in health fairs, things like that. But we do not have a strong community focus. That's definitely not the focus of our particular program. With that said, though, for students that do join us, if they're really interested in something like WIC or eating disorders or something that maybe we're not providing, you do have a 3-week choice. So over that 3-week period, you can decide on a rotation that you want to pursue. And I'll help you get that set up. And then you have 3 weeks to go and pursue something of your interest. And the next slide. So just looking at some of our clinical experiences. So inpatient is at North Oaks. So we have 5 clinical dietitians, and the interns spend 2 weeks with each of them. And they all have their own units, basically. So we've got general medicine, which is kind of just a really basic unit in the hospital. People on general med aren't that sick. You might have some infections, some pneumonia, things like that, not terribly sick. Ortho-neuro is part of the trauma, and that is people, anything from, usually it's trauma related. They've gotten in an accident, broken a hip, or have had a head injury. We've got ICU, the NICU, and the SICU. So SICU is surgical ICU. That's also part of trauma. So those are our more intense floors, I guess. Interns don't start there. You finish there, basically. Telemetry in the cardiac unit, pediatrics, labor delivery. We have the rehab hospital, and then trauma rounds. So when students are with the dietitian that does surgical ICU and ortho-neuro, we have what's called trauma rounding, and that's with the trauma team. And it's an interdisciplinary team that includes the trauma surgeon, the charge nurse, the case manager, the chaplain, and the dietitian. And then if we need speech therapy or OT or anything like that, they might be involved as well. And they actually round as a team on those patients. So the interns do participate in that. They're always nervous, like, is the dietitian going to tell me I have to be the one to talk? And no, not unless you choose that for staff relief. But it is really interesting to see how the team works together and what the dietitian's role is in patient care for those trauma patients. So those are the rotations that you would do inpatient at our hospital. We also have a lot of off-site facilities that we go through rotations at. Lolly Kemp is in Independence. It's a state-run hospital facility, and that's always an interesting rotation for students because their dietitian there kind of is like a one-woman show, right? So she's doing the food service, she's doing the outpatient, she's doing inpatient. She kind of does a little bit of everything. And so it's a really unique experience for interns to see what it would look like to work in a smaller hospital where you do a little bit of everything. We also spend roughly 6 weeks at University Medical Center in New Orleans. So you do 2 weeks on the oncology unit, 2 weeks on the burns and infectious diseases unit, and 2 weeks in diabetes education there. Because that hospital is so large, it's a completely different experience for the students than they would see, where we have, 6 dietitians at North Oaks. University Medical Center has more than I can even count. So it's really interesting to see kind of a bigger facility and how that team works together. We do 2 separate oncology rotations with Mary Bird Perkins and the St. Tammany Cancer Center. Those are in Covington near St. Tammany Parish Hospital. So the interns spend a couple of weeks there, and they do both inpatient and outpatient oncology at that rotation, as well as work with the oncology food bank that is at Mary Bird Perkins. Renal dialysis, we spend some time with DaVita and Fresenius dialysis centers. Interns either love it or they hate it. If you really like seeing the port and the dialysis process and how that all goes down, then it can be really interesting. Dietitians that work in dialysis get very close with their patients. They see the same patients every week. They're really in tune to their labs, and they have a really close working relationship with the physician and the other clinical care team. So I think that that's a really unique experience for interns to see as well. We go to Baton Rouge General for outpatient counseling, and we go to Post-Acute Medical Center for, it's an LTAC. So it's just like seeing a little bit more of a long-term care. So clinical experiences are designed to sort of progress in complexity and then culminate in a 2-week staff relief experience. So, you might start with a really general medicine and kind of progress then to getting more, you might go through general med, pediatrics, tele, rehab, until you're going to progress. And then your final rotations will be more like the burn unit, oncology, renal dialysis. And then you select your 2-week staff relief. So you decide, okay, I've been through all of these rotations now. I've been doing this for months and months and months. What do I want to see myself doing? So then you can select one of those and you go and work, and you're there for basically 80 hours. You do a full 2-week rotation where you are the dietitian on staff, basically, and you take over and complete the role. So students always feel like there's no way I'll be able to do that, but by the time it comes around, it's a piece of cake. And on the next slide, we'll talk about our food service management. So you spend about 8 weeks in management at our hospital at North Oaks. That is working a lot in the kitchen. We do have a head chef. So you work with chef a lot on, maybe we need to change up some things in the patient menu. Maybe we should change up some things in the cafeteria for staff. So you get to see sort of how food service works in a large facility. And that culminates in a theme day project, which basically you decide on a theme meal that you want to prepare and serve for the cafeteria for that day. And students, they pick lots of, I think this last year I had someone who did like a day at Disney World, and so all of her food was Disney World themed, or, you might just do something traditional like, Italian themes or Taco Tuesday or something like that. But it's really fun for interns to see the process of, okay, I picked a menu, I picked recipes, now I have to order the food, now I have to price it out. Oh, that's too expensive, let me go back. So it's really good to see sort of how that entire process works in food service. They also have a research project that we do in food service, which basically you kind of find a problem and then implement a solution and then do the research on how that solution went. So maybe redesigning the salad bar, putting healthier options in the cafeteria, creating grab-and-go meals, whatever it might be, and then you present on how that went. We also spend 2 weeks at the child nutrition with the school board dietitian. We have a couple of different contracts. Usually it just kind of depends on the year as far as which school board we go to. We've gone to St. Tammany Parish School Board. We've done Livingston Parish. This year we're using Central. So it just depends on the year and where the bulk of my students reside. You know, if I have a lot of students that live in the Covington-Mandeville area, then we'll use St. Tammany. If I have a lot that are living in Baton Rouge, then we're going to go Livingston or Central. It just depends on the year. Okay, and on the next slide, you'll see our community experiences. So normally we do spend 1 week at diabetes camp, and that diabetes camp is a camp for children who are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It is camp, and you do actually sleep there for a week. This year, unfortunately, the students were not able to attend because of COVID-19, but I really think that by the time it rolls around, camp is in July. So I think that by the time camp rolls around, we'll be able to attend this year. It's usually one of the students' favorite rotations of the year. I remember myself as an intern thinking, there is no way I'm going to enjoy being a camper for a week. That is not my thing, but it actually was very rewarding and educational. And, you know, you think of yourself, oh, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to teach these kids about carb counting, or I'm going to teach them about the glycemic index. And absolutely not. They teach you, you know, they live with this every day. They live with the pumps. They live with the continuous glucose monitors. They're teaching you really more than you're teaching them, and you really get to have a great experience. And it's a bonding experience too for the interns, because it's at the beginning of our year, and so you get to know each other really well. So diabetes camp is it's a 1 week camp with kids with diabetes, and then throughout the year we have different presentations. You know, we'll do grocery store tours. We usually go to Rouse's. You know, Rouse's has a registered dietitian, so we work with her and go to the Rouse's grocery store to do tours, usually with our diabetes support group. We have a cooking demo. We do a lot of just different group presentations throughout the year for the community. We also, of course, the interns will do a sports nutrition rotation at Southeastern with myself. And so it's planned out for 1 week, but depending on the student, like, for example, right now in our program, I have a student who knows she wants to be a sports dietitian. That is her goal. She wants to work collegiately and then hopefully in the pro football arena. So she's putting in all of her extra time that she has at Southeastern doing things with sports nutrition. And there we have a nutrition, a fueling station, but we also do team talks. We do individual counseling with the athletes. We do biometrics with the athletes. So you can be as involved. You have to do at least 1 week, but for some of my students, it's just not their thing. And that's okay. You do your 1 week, kind of see what it's all about. And then for my other students who are really interested in it, I can give you as much opportunity to be there as you want, because they definitely need us. And so for my students who are interested in it, they're more than happy to have you there. We have cardiac and pulmonary rehab. So we have a gym at the hospital, and it is for our patients who are going through any kind of cardiac or pulmonary rehabilitation. So maybe they've just had heart surgery, or maybe they're suffering with congestive heart failure or COPD. They actually go to the gym. They have to come to the gym 3 times a week and do exercise under supervision of the nurses. And so the interns go and spend some time in there, and they talk to the patients while they're exercising about their diet. It's a fun day. It's very laid back. The patients are usually in a really good mood. I don't know, maybe it's the exercise endorphins, I don't know, but they're really sweet and friendly, and it's a great day, and it's a good time to be able to see, you know, we see patients in the hospital, but it's great to see them kind of in their own environment a little bit when they're a little more relaxed and more excited to talk to you about their diet. And then, of course, there's the 3-week intern choice, where you can select a rotation. Maybe it's something that we didn't offer during the year that you're interested in, or maybe it's something that you did already that you loved and you want to spend a few more weeks getting more experience in it. Things that students have done in the past, let me think. So I've had students go, inpatient eating disorder facility in Dallas. I've had students go there. We already have a contract with them. And of course, you have to have the ability to go stay in Dallas for a couple of weeks. But if you do have that ability, it's a fantastic experience. I've had students do more like diabetes education through Ochsner. I've had students do work with a dietitian at an infusion company. So a lot of dietitians will actually do more like home health, where they're sending to feed and TPNs to people in their homes. So I've had students work with that. It just really, it's wide open. It could be anything you want it to be, which can be hard because you're like, I don't even know what I want to do. There's so many options, but I'll help you narrow it down. And on the next slide. Oh, that's just a picture, I don't know, of, we go to the land meeting every year. We usually go to like a New Orleans food and restaurant expo. We do cooking demos. So there's just a couple of pictures, and you can go to the next slide. So a day in the life of an intern, because I think it's really hard at where you guys are right now. I think it's really hard to kind of imagine what is my internship going to be like? What am I going to do every day? So to give you an idea, we meet for orientation. So orientation's in June. You spend a couple of days with me. You get your schedule for the year at orientation. So on day one, you're going to know where you're going to be on day 365. So you'll have that schedule for the whole year. You are asked to contact your preceptors at least 2 weeks prior to your scheduled rotation. So if I'm looking at my schedule and I go, okay, I know my first rotation is going to be with Leslie and outpatient, and then after that I'm going to, I'm starting with my clinicals with Katie. Well, you're going to know at least 2 weeks before you start that rotation, you need to contact that preceptor via email and just say, hi, I'm your next intern. Are there days that you would like me to come? Do you have, what time would you like me there? Scrubs appropriate, that kind of thing. I give you kind of like a little guidance on what your emails are supposed to say to your preceptors. Most of the rotations are met sometime between Monday through Friday, three days a week. 8 to 4:30 is pretty much the standard hours. You do have some assignments, case studies, menu creations, oral reports. I feel like this year is supervised practice, right? So there's not really a lot of homework. That's not the goal. The goal is for you to actually do things. Any kind of assignments that you have are basically more for us to be able to demonstrate your competency and things that I think would be beneficial to you in your practice when you get started. So creating menus or, presenting oral reports, things like that, is just to help you be a better dietitian when you get started. You do complete evaluations of each rotation. So each preceptor is going to complete an evaluation of your time spent with them, but you also will complete an evaluation of your time too. I like for the interns to do those evaluations because I need, I don't go to UMC and the cancer center. Like, I don't know what's going on over there. So I trust the interns to tell me if there's something maybe that I need to address with a preceptor, or maybe, you didn't have the greatest experience. Those are things that I can address, and maybe it's a rotation that we won't go to anymore and I find a better one. So I really rely on communication between interns and myself and preceptors and myself, and reading those evaluations to make sure that we keep high standards in our program. And you can go on the next slide. Requirements of graduation. This is just standard basically for everyone. Currently, so historically the minimum hours is 1,200 hours. Ascend has decreased that to 1,000 hours just with the current environment that we're living in. So you do have to complete at least 1,000 hours of supervised practice. We meet monthly, individually, one-on-one, so I can go over your progress with you, because I don't ever want an intern to feel like they don't know, okay, am I doing well? Is there something I need to work on? What's going on? So we do meet one-on-one once a month, just so I can tell you kind of like what your preceptors have been saying, what you're doing great at, what you might need to work on a little bit more. And then you have face-to-face time with me as well if you have any concerns, or if there's anything that you feel like you need a little bit more work on or guidance on, or if there's anything at all that I can be doing to help you, you have that face-to-face time with me. And so, you do have to complete the required hours. You have to complete all the rotations, all the assignments, and then you get a verification statement and you're ready to roll for the RD exam. On the next slide. So back to a little bit more of a breakdown for tuition. It is $7,800. Half is due in June. The other half is due in December. Part of that tuition does go to pay for your exam prep workshop. Interns are responsible for providing their own uniforms. We wear scrubs, so your uniform is scrubs. So you have to provide your own uniforms, lodging, transportation, food, that kind of thing. We do not give refunds. So if something happens in the middle of the year and unfortunately you have to drop out of the program, there are no refunds given. So we keep that known up front. Although I never had anybody drop out. That's not really a thing that happens, but in case it does, I don't know. Application fee is $40 when you submit to DICAS. You'll send us the $40 application fee as well. You do have to maintain student membership with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. You do have to maintain student liability insurance. Usually you have to go to either the land conference or FNC. That's up to you which one you want to go to, but you need to go to one of them. We do have a competency tracking software called Adjectives. So you'll pay for your subscription to that. And it's such a great program. You can clock in and out of your rotations from your phone. So it tracks your time. You can see all of your grades, all of your evaluations, all of your assignments that have been turned in. You can see it all within the same program. You can do it from your phone or from your desktop, but it does help kind of keep everything in one place for you. So you're not having to ask me like, hey, Leslie, did you get this paper I sent you? Did you grade it yet? Like you'll be able to see it get uploaded and graded into the program, as well as, we can track your hours. So you can see, okay, I'm getting close to that 1,000 hours or I'm not, whatever it might be going on. So that's basically what you're looking at as far as expenses for the year. All of our rotations are pretty much, so you spend a lot of time in Hammond, obviously, at our main medical center and the rehab center, but there are rotations in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and the Covington-Mandeville area. But that's pretty much the extent of where you're traveling to. And on the next slide. Holidays, you get 2 weeks off at the Christmas, New Year holiday. You're off for 4th of July, Labor Day, and a week at Thanksgiving. And then, of course, things happen throughout the year. I mean, I tell people this is not your year to plan a ski trip or anything like that. But, of course, if you get sick, we kind of work that into your year as well. And we never want anybody to come to work if they're sick. Okay, and on the next slide, the application process. So, you have to have your bachelor's degree and verification statement. Our minimum GPA requirements, total GPA is a 2.8, DPD is a 3.0 as far as our minimum requirements. I tell students, sometimes we'll look around that if you stand out in other ways. Maybe you're right there on the border. Maybe your DPD is like a 2.97 and you're just right there. But you've also had to work your way in. You've been working you've worked at the same place for 4 years, and you have other, volunteer experience, and your letters of recommendation are just stellar. Then sometimes we look around those things. It's something that we have to have something to kind of weed people out, but I also wouldn't let that make or break you either. And on the next slide. The application process, we do use the DICAS process. You'll submit your application through DICAS as well as your application fee to us at North Oaks. I usually try and narrow it down from the applications we get. I try and narrow it down to select who we're going to interview in person. So we do ask you to come to a in-person interview. So the last, we do those usually sometime in March. Like my last one was, you can see March 17th was the last interview that we did. So they're usually in March. It's a selection committee of myself and several of the preceptors usually. And I know that makes everybody so nervous, but it's just to give us an opportunity to meet you face to face. And sometimes people can be amazing on paper and kind of burn out in person, or vice versa. Maybe I was maybe I wasn't so sure about their application, but then I meet you in person and you just do an amazing job. So, and for my people that apply that don't live locally, we do a Zoom interview. And then we go through the match system, and match dates are sometime in April, and then we start in June. And you can go to the next slide. So what would make your application stand out? So when I get those applications and digests, of course I look at the GPA just to have an idea of what's going on, but then I go directly to your personal statement and read that first. Because I want to know who you are before I start looking at the rest of the application. So I usually look at the personal statement. I feel like your personal statement's an opportunity for you to just tell me, why are you applying to Northoaks? Why are you a good fit for us? What do you want to gain from your experience with us? And so it just gives me an idea of who you are and why you want to be a dietitian and what brought you to this place. So I do look pretty closely at the personal statement. Work experience or volunteer experience, either or, I think it tells a lot about a person's commitment if they've been working and been at the same place for a period of time. And then, of course, your letters of recommendation, because these are the people that are going to know you the best. And I think that it's always quite interesting to me to see, if your letter of recommendation from someone is 2 lines that says, yep, she was great, I recommend her. Well, that kind of, if you read between the lines there, like they're kind of telling me that they don't. So I think be choosy about who you select to write your letters. Pick people that know you really well and can really speak to who you are as a person and as a student, as an applicant. But definitely spend some time on your personal statement and telling us about who you are and why you would be a good fit at Northoaks. And on the next slide. So we also have a master's degree track. So this is optional. This is the first year, so I have 2 students enrolled in it right now. It was the first year that we've offered it. We have an optional track with the University of Southern Mississippi. It's a master's degree of nutrition and food systems. They have a 2-year program. It's completely online. So my 2 students that are enrolled in it right now, what we did, I worked with the director at USM and said, okay, tell me what their coursework looks like, and then I match up their rotations to align with coursework. So if their fall semester is all food service management, well then during the fall semester with us, that's when they'll do their food service management. We also combined assignments so that they make sense, so that you're not doing multiple assignments in your master's program and then assignments with us. It's like, well, let's just do one that meets everybody's needs. So we have worked really closely with them to be able to offer that. It's just an option. It's not mandatory, but I wanted to have something that would be easy for students who are interested in pursuing a master's, that we could offer that to them. On the next slide, you can see kind of how the coursework falls with USM right now. So in the first year, you start in summer classes in June. So you have 2 classes for the summer. They have 2 in the fall and plus supervised practice, 2 classes in the spring. So you can see how it works. So for us right now, my students that are currently enrolled, they will graduate with me in June and get their verification statement from me, but then they're going to have a whole nother year still of finishing the master's coursework. So their program is 2 years. We're still only 1 year. It's still separate. We're just combining to make it a little bit easier for students. But your rotations with us are still individual. When you're finished with us, you're finished with us. And then whatever coursework you have to finish with USM, that'll be between you and them. And on the next slide, we have another option as well. So Southeastern Louisiana University is local in Hammond. They don't have a dietetics program, but they do have a master's degree in kinesiology and health promotion. It's what I got my master's degree in. It's an 18-month program. Classes are in the evenings from 5 to 8, so it's in person. It's not online. And so, you could go and get your master's with them as well. And that's a little bit of a shorter program. It's only 18 months. So it's really just kind of giving students an option. Do you want to pursue a master's that continues in like a master's of nutrition, or do you want to try and get something a little bit different, the kinesiology route? I think both are are great selections for people who are interested in getting their master's degree right now. The other thing that a lot of students do, that I've had students do in the past, is they get a master's of whatever they want. It's just online. So I've had students that were at like Texas Women's online or University of Alabama online, kind of on their own, doing that in conjunction with our supervised practice program. That is completely up to you. I'll work with you as much as I can as far as saying like, okay, let me look at your course schedule. Now let's plan out your rotations accordingly. But the beauty of where we are in the world today with all the online options, I mean, it's really, you can pick whatever you want. I think if you're really interested in sports nutrition and you want to do a master's online in sports nutrition while doing your supervised practice, that's totally a great option right now. So we have offered these optional tracks. Students can also decide to just do the internship only, and that's completely fine too. It'll run June to June. In June, you'll be finished. You'll get your verification statement with us. And on the next slide. So that is kind of a really brief snapshot of our dietetic internship program. I know you've all been made aware that as of 2024, you'll have to get a master's. So I think those of you that are matching this year are squeaking by without having to do that. But those of you that might be matching in the future, it is something to start looking at and considering. So we have made those options available to students if they want to go that track and get the master's degree at the same time. And thank you all. I know that we had some questions, so I'll let Erin take over now.
All right. Thanks so much for that overview. So I have 5 questions that I prepared with the help of some of the students. I asked them a few weeks back to give me some ideas of things that they really want to know from directors. So I'm asking the same 5 questions of every director that comes on the program. So the first one is there a particular thing that you love to see on a personal statement?
Well, so I can tell you how everybody starts their personal statement, and then maybe you'll want to start it a different way. So I feel like every personal statement I read says, growing up in South Louisiana, you know, we love to eat, and now my family has diabetes, so I want to be a dietitian. That's pretty much what most of my what I read. So if you can say something maybe other than that, like, you know, obviously that might be what brought you to the career or to the field, or if you have any personal experience with nutrition, you know, maybe you've had your own battles that you've dealt with, or maybe, you know, you were a college athlete and you saw how nutrition helped you, or whatever it may be, something that is very individual to you. So definitely like why you want to be a dietitian, but then also why you want to be an intern at North Oaks. You know, I want to know that you've actually looked at our program and thought about our program, and you know the rotations that we're offering, and that's something you desire, that it's not just like, oh, well, it's close to home, you know, that you've actually looked at our program and it's a good fit for you, because maybe your goal is to be a WIC dietitian and we don't even offer a rotation in that. So that just doesn't really make sense. So, you know, in your personal statement, tell me a little bit about who you are, what brought you to nutrition, and then why do you want to come to our program?
All right, great. So this next question is a true or false question with a little bit of explanation afterwards.
Okay.
So an applicant's resume should always be 1 page and 1 page only.
False.
And why?
And why? Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's your moment to brag about yourself and to show me all of the amazing things that you've done. And I mean, my resume is not just 1 page, because I've got a ton of certifications and a lot of experiences. And so I don't think it has to just be 1 page. No, I mean, look, it shouldn't be 4 pages, right? I don't need to know that you were an excellent babysitter when you were 13, but you know, anything that you feel like will help you stand out, you know, if you're CPR certified, if you have, you know, first aid certifications, if you, you know, serve safe certificate, if you have those things, you want to put it on your resume. It's, sometimes it's almost easier for me to flip to the resume and see things than it is to read through DICAs. So I think that your resume is actually pretty important. So I wouldn't tell you have to keep it to 1 page. No.
I agree. Just like to hear what other directors have.
Yeah.
All right, so the third question is, what is one thing that an applicant may do that's a total deal breaker for you, where you would not consider them? So either something on their application, maybe something in meeting them in person, or a conversation on the phone, maybe something they do in the interview where you're just like, red flag, that's a no.
Well, I think that, you know, I haven't seen a lot of like red flags on applications. I'm sorry if y'all hear my dogs barking in the background. They're very excited about something out there. I don't think that there's anything on the application that I can think of that would be a complete deal breaker. Well, I take that back. Sometimes in people's personal statement, you know, I want you to tell me why you became a dietitian, but without giving a sob story, if that makes sense. So sometimes people can go on and on and on a little bit too much. And it's like, okay, so remember, we need to keep it professional, right? I mean, this is still a professional application. So, keeping things as very professional in your personal statement. But really, it's usually more in the interview. Honestly, I've had people come in dressed really inappropriately, like shockingly inappropriately. And that, when in doubt, wear a pantsuit, so high heels, you're going to be walking the distance from the entrance of the hospital to my office feels like a mile. So if I have to walk with you and you're walking like a turtle because you're in these high heels, it drives me nuts. So I would say, be prepared. You have to walk at a little bit of a distance. So that needs to feel professional as well. We're going to be walking and talking, and it needs to feel easy. It shouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, this poor girl, her feet must be killing her. We're walking so slow. Like, that is just it's such a silly thing to matter, but it just shows that you hadn't really thought it through. So dressing professionally, dressing like you are coming to a business meeting, not like you are, going somewhere else. So professional dress. And then in the interview, we've had people, I don't know how much you want to know about this, but I've had people come in and plop their Starbucks coffee down on my desk and push their sunglasses up on their head and kick back. And it's like, oh my goodness, like, this is not appropriate. So just remembering where you are, what you're doing, that you are putting your best foot forward. You are showing me your absolute best self in that moment. If you're nervous, that is fine. Everyone's nervous in an interview. That's not something for you to be, concerned about. Everyone's going to be nervous. It's more, the turnoff is when people don't act in a professional manner. It's fine to be nervous, but also remember where you are. I mean, the VP of Human Resources is in this interview. So, I mean, he's going to be in a business suit. I'm going to be in a business suit. If you come in and, high heels and a mini skirt, like, eesh, not good. So when in doubt, wear a business suit and leave the Starbucks in your car.
That's really good advice. I like that. All right. So the next question is, what is one area of the internship program that you as the director are actively trying to make even better for your interns?
I would say we've been putting, over the last 2 years, it's been a huge effort to get some kind of master's degree component, so that we can offer you some options. So that's something that we've definitely been working on, is having that. And then, it was the struggle of trying to decide, is it something that we make mandatory and pick one direction? And I just don't think that that's the way to go right now. I think students need options. Not everybody wants to pursue a master's in nutrition. Maybe you want to do sports nutrition, maybe you want to do health promotion, maybe you want to do kinesiology or exercise science. So for us to be able to provide a master's degree component but still give you options has been a goal of mine personally for the last few years. We're always working to improve students' experiences with their preceptors. So it's one of the reasons we don't have a WIC rotation right now, because the local experiences that we were having, I was getting bad reports about. So anytime I get a report back from a student that says, oh, I just kind of sat in the office for 8 hours and didn't really do anything, well, that's not a good use of time. I want to maximize your time. I think that my time is valuable, and I think your time is valuable as well. And so I'm always wanting to make sure that whatever you're doing, whatever time you're clocking with us, is really valuable to you, and that you're learning, and that you're going to take those experiences and be an amazing dietitian at the end of this. So I read those evaluations the second I get them, and I address any issues as soon as it comes up, because I want to make sure that every preceptor is representing our program appropriately, and I want to make sure that every rotation is helping you become better prepared as a dietitian.
Awesome. All right. So last question of mine, and it's a two-parter. Mm-hmm. So what would be 3 adjectives that best describe your program? Or 3 descriptors?
3 descriptors of our program. I would say, first and foremost, we It was so hard to just use 3 words. I feel like I have to talk a lot. Okay, so we have variety. I would say variety is major. I think when you look at our rotation list and the amount of experiences you get to have, and that's something that when I came on as program director 5 years ago, I really looked at evaluations from students in the past, and they were asking for experiences at a burn unit. They were asking for experiences in oncology and dialysis. And so we added that. And so I think that our variety is really big, as well as having that 3-week choice. It gives you so much opportunity to go out there and really see all the different opportunities you have as a dietitian. So I'd say variety is one. I have a very close relationship with my interns, so I don't even know what word I would use to describe that, but we care tremendously about your success. And to the point, usually I'm not your preceptor, but for the next 3 weeks, I've got an intern working one-on-one with me because I felt like she was falling behind a little bit. So I was like, can't let that happen. You're going to be with me for the next 3 weeks, and we're going to tackle each and everything that you might be struggling with, and I'm putting the time in myself to do that. So I think that the caring and our preceptors, we just have a generosity with our students, and we just care so much about their success. So variety, caring, another one. I would say convenience, because we're part-time, you can work. We're in a great location because we're hitting rotations in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Covington, Mandeville area. So you can live in Hammond or you can live in any of those areas. So I think that the convenience factor of having a part-time internship that allows you to pursue a master's if you want, allows you to work if you need to. So I would say that would be the other one.
Okay, for the second part, it's very similar, and this might be a little bit easier. So 3 adjectives or descriptors that describe your ideal applicant.
Okay, let's see. Confident would be one for sure. I really like it when I have interns working with me that, it's so hard as a student when you're nervous and you're not sure, but if you can be confident in your knowledge and confident in yourself and confident enough in yourself to know when you need to ask the questions and ask for help, that's major. So confidence, being independent is a good thing as well, just because I need to trust you to be able to take your schedule and roll with it and go and do the things that you need to do without a whole lot of hand-holding necessarily, even though we're available for that as well, and I do that as needed. But confident and independent, and then just hardworking. We just ask that you come in, you do the things that you need to do. You don't call in a lot. There's definitely rules about how many call-ins I'll deal with. So hardworking and knowing that you're going to put this program first and do what you got to do to reach your goals.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So we have some questions that the students have put in the chat, and I think we've touched on a lot of them, so I'm going to do my best to kind of go through them. But you mentioned this a little bit, but are there other examples of things that you've had to change for this upcoming year of interns because of COVID that you haven't mentioned?
Yeah, for sure. So the dialysis centers for the fall are closed to students. So we're hoping that they'll open in the spring, but if we're not able to actually go into the dialysis centers for the spring, we'll have to do some kind of virtual education for that. Which you'll Skype in with the preceptors. You can share labs and things like that, but it's just not quite the same experience as being there in person with the patients. So for sure, I know that the renal dialysis centers are going to be a problem. If we get to attend those at all, it'll be virtually, but that's the only one that I've had to change. We're still going to oncology. Oh, and diabetes camp. Diabetes camp was canceled for this year. Obviously, you can't have a camp of a bunch of immunocompromised children, so we had to cancel that for the year. But those are the only 2. Everything else, students are still doing all their rounds at North Oaks, and at every other rotation, they're still attending in person just as planned. The only other thing that has come up is, of course, if you have an illness, or let's say you might have fever, well, you have to go get COVID tested before I can let you come back to work. So that's been kind of unique because, of course, people get sick on and off throughout the year for a lot of different things. So I've had several interns that have had to be out getting COVID tested before they could come back. And of course, they've all been negative, but it's still a precaution that we have to take just because of the nature of our environment. So that's been kind of different too, having to rework people's schedule, being like, okay, well, you got to sit out for the next 3 or 4 days until we get that test back and you get cleared to come back. And then we have to rework the schedule to make up those days. But that's pretty much it. I was expecting us to have a lot more trouble this year, but we have not.
Okay. And I think you touched on this a little bit when you were talking about the master's program options. You said that this year you have 2 interns in this current class that are working on the master's at Southern Miss. Yes,
I have 2 that selected to do the online master's at Southern Miss. They're doing better than I could have expected. Honestly, it's going, it's such a relief, I should knock on wood. It's such a relief that it's going as well as it is for our first year trying it out. And maybe it's because they're exceptional students, or maybe because, we just planned accordingly to make it run smoothly. But the 2 that are participating right now, it's going really well.
And then I know one of those students that's doing that right now. And so for the students that are wondering, you apply to Southern Miss after you get matched. Mm-hmm. And they pretty much ask you to reuse your same 3 letters of recommendation writers. So you just reach back out to them and ask them just to resubmit it to them. It's a pretty seamless process that I've seen for applying to a master's program.
They don't require a GRE as well. So, for students who are like on the, you're just like unsure, you can still do it at the last minute because they don't require the GRE. So that's how I know, like, one of my students that's curling in it, she wasn't even expecting to do a master's, but when she heard about it and she heard that they didn't require the GRE, she was like, okay, I'm going to, I can't pass this up. I'm going to go ahead and enroll.
Does Southeastern Louisiana require a GRE for theirs?
They do right now because the GRE, the waivement for that has been for online programs only. So because they're in person and not online, they couldn't waive it. But I think in the next few years, we're going to see everybody getting rid of that. But for now, no, Southeastern still requires it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then just to your knowledge of thinking about like classes of the past, were students that were doing online programs still able to handle everything pretty well with the part-time hours on site and whatnot?
I mean, I've had students that were doing our program and on the online masters, and that seems very stressful to me. But when you're in our rotations, the 3 days that you're dedicated to us, you have a lot of time to do your assignments in those days that you're already clocked in. It's not a lot of homework for us that you're doing at home. So then if you are doing a master's degree, then you have that free time, those other 2 working days during the week as well as the weekends to focus on that. So I've really seen it because we're part-time. It hasn't been that much of a challenge.
Okay. So I'm going to change how this student asked this question. So for a student to be able to start the internship on time, they have to be already graduated in May, correct? So they have their verification.
Not necessarily. They can be graduating in the summer. So I've made arrangements for students in the past. Now, granted, they were, they had been in communication with me for the whole semester before, telling me like, look, I want to come here. I'm awesome and you have to have me, but I can't start till August. And so I've had students who we have made adjustments for because they were graduating for the summer, and it just felt wrong to make them sit out a whole year because they were graduating in the summer. So no, I would tell you still need to submit your application and go through the match process during the spring because that's how we match. But if you're communicating with me and letting me know, like, look, I'm not going to have a verification statement in hand until August 19th, and I know you can't start your rotations until August 19th, we make it work. It's unfortunate, you wouldn't be able to go to diabetes camp, which is in July. You'd miss that, but you would start regular rotations. We'd have to play a little bit of a catch up, but it would be fine.
Oh, that's good to know, because I, as a DPD director, would have told them, no, you can't do that. I would have just assumed, but that's good to know, just in case.
I don't love doing it, and I wouldn't do it necessarily unless it was, a student that had been talking to me and that I felt was going to be successful at playing the catch-up game, because they're going to start a month later than everybody else or 2 months later than everybody else. You're going to have to really go full time then for a month or two until you catch up. I wouldn't let them start in August and then be part-time. You'd have to go full time for about 8 weeks. I think the students in the past have done about 8 weeks of full time to catch up. But we do, being a small program, we have that flexibility. I'm working with 9 students, not 40. So it's pretty easy to be flexible.
All right, that's good. All right, so with COVID, is there any way to visit you at North Oaks?
Yes. So you would just contact me via email or you can call my office and we set up a time. They'll temp check you on your way in. You'll have to wear a mask, but you can absolutely still come visit. Mm-hmm.
So, and then do you have plans to do an open house this year?
No, we do not have plans to do an open house this year just because we don't know when they're going to lift the restrictions on how many people can come in. And because we are in a hospital facility, we have to be just even more careful. So I don't have plans to do an in-person open house this year. So I would tell anyone who has interest in coming in and seeing the facility, just contact me and I'll set up a time for you to come. Or if you have a couple of you that want to come together, just get together and shoot me an email and we'll set up a time.
All right. So that was all the questions that I had in the group chat. Are there any students that are live with us that would like to ask a question themselves? You just go ahead and unmute yourself. Seeing a lot of no.
And that's okay. Anybody can contact me. Y'all can send me emails or, I love it when a student reaches out and it helps me, know you a little bit more before I get your application. So I love it when students reach out. If you want to come visit, we'd love to have you.
All right. Well, if no one has any more questions, thank you, Leslie, so much. This is extremely informative. And for those at home, if you want more information on the North Oaks Dietetic Internship and to reach out to Leslie for more information, check out the link I provided in the description below this video. And as always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'll see you next time. Bye.